Let's dive into the often uncomfortable realm of disrespect, an experience most of us, if not all, have encountered in varying degrees, and explore how to navigate these situations without sacrificing our self-respect or spiraling into unnecessary conflict, for it is in these moments of disrespect that we are presented with an opportunity, not just to defend ourselves, but to define ourselves, to draw a line in the sand that says, this far, and no further, a line that is not born of anger or aggression, but of a deep-seated understanding of our own worth, our own boundaries, and our own inherent right to be treated with dignity. It begins with recognizing the subtle ways disrespect manifests itself, those seemingly innocuous actions that chip away at our self-esteem, from the constant interruptions that signal our words are less valuable, to the passive-aggressive comments that undermine our achievements, to the casual dismissals that imply our time and feelings are optional. Things we are just supposed to smile and let slide for the sake of social harmony, a concept that sounds appealing in theory but often translates to the systematic erosion of our own boundaries and the tacit approval of disrespectful behavior, and it's a cycle we must break, not by becoming aggressive or confrontational, but by cultivating a quiet strength, a calm assertiveness that communicates our boundaries without raising our voices, for one of the most potent, yet often overlooked techniques is embracing the silent stare, a seemingly passive act that is, in reality, a masterclass in psychological redirection, for when someone is being openly rude or disrespectful, their primary objective is typically to elicit a reaction, to provoke an emotional response that allows them to seize control of the dynamic. They want to see us stammer, fluster, perhaps even lash out, all of which validates their initial act of disrespect and reinforces their perceived position of power. They are seeking to drag us into their drama, to make us question ourselves, to feel small, but when we meet their disrespect with a long, calm, completely unbothered stare, we disrupt their carefully constructed narrative and subtly reclaim the power, for the silence, that pregnant pause filled with nothing but unwavering eye contact, becomes a mirror reflecting their own behavior back at them, forcing them to confront the discomfort of their own actions, and in that moment, the power dynamic flips. It ceases to be about their disrespect and becomes about their reaction to our lack of one, a silent challenge to their authority, a clear, nonverbal declaration that we refuse to participate in their game, that we are not puppets to be manipulated by their words or actions, and this technique, while it might initially sound passive-aggressive, is far more nuanced than mere defiance. It is a statement of self-control, a reminder to both them and ourselves that we do not have to dance to someone else's tune, that we are not obligated to provide an emotional reaction on demand, and that our worth is not contingent upon their approval. It is about reclaiming our space, our peace, and our dignity, often without uttering a single word, for in those moments of silence, we are communicating far more effectively than any verbal retort could. We are signaling that we are grounded, unbothered, and unapologetically in control of our own emotions, and that their attempts to undermine us are futile. For instance, imagine yourself in a group meeting where a particular individual consistently talks over you, cutting you off mid-sentence as if on a personal crusade to dominate the conversation, a person whose voice seems to possess an invisible volume knob, cranked all the way to 11, while everyone else is barely registering on the scale. You might try interjecting politely, attempting to regain control of the floor, but they remain undeterred, steamrolling over your attempts with relentless enthusiasm. In such a situation, the silent stare can be a remarkably effective tool. Lean back in your chair, cross your arms, and fix your gaze upon them, not with anger or animosity, but with a calm, steady, unwavering intensity. Hold their gaze for a few seconds, refusing to blink or look away. Let the silence build, and you will likely observe a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The tension will thicken, the other attendees will begin to shift uncomfortably, wondering what will happen next, and the individual who was so confidently dominating the conversation will begin to falter, their words will stumble, their confidence will waver, and they will suddenly find themselves unable to meet your gaze, a testament to the power of silence to disrupt the dynamics of disrespect, for the silent stare achieves more than simply halting their behavior in the moment. It establishes a precedent. It communicates that you are not someone to be easily dismissed or disregarded. And it often leads to a noticeable shift in their subsequent interactions with you, as if they have finally recognized that you possess a quiet strength that cannot be easily overcome. because, you see, embracing the silent stare is about more than just exerting control over the immediate situation, it is about reinforcing your own sense of self-worth. It is a constant reminder that you do not have to defend yourself to those who are not genuinely interested in understanding you. It is a declaration that you value your own peace of mind more than their fleeting approval, and that your worth is not diminished by their attempts to undermine you, for too often, we feel compelled to defend ourselves against disrespectful comments or actions, to justify our choices, or to apologize for our very existence, but these responses only serve to drain our energy and validate the disrespect. For it is in the act of defending ourselves that we implicitly acknowledge the validity of the attack, but the silent stare allows us to bypass this cycle of defensiveness, to stand tall in our own truth, and to refuse to be drawn into their negativity, and while mastering this technique might take practice, it is an invaluable tool for anyone who seeks to navigate the often turbulent waters of social interaction with grace and self-respect, for it is a constant reminder that our silence can be just as powerful, if not more so, than our words, and that we always have the power to choose how we respond to disrespect, not by engaging in a battle of wills, but by quietly and confidently asserting our own worth, and building upon that. It's also important to embrace silence as a direct and deliberate response, transforming it into a weapon against those who seek to disrespect you, as it is often seen as a passive act, a mere absence of words that signifies defeat or acquiescence, but in reality, silence can be a powerful and assertive choice, one that communicates far more effectively than any verbal response could, for when someone disrespects you, they are typically seeking to provoke a reaction, to draw you into their drama, to make you feel small or defensive, but when you choose to remain silent, you deny them that satisfaction, you refuse to engage in their game, and you force them to confront the emptiness of their own behavior, for silence, in this context, is not merely the absence of sound, it is a deliberate withholding of your energy, your attention, and your validation. It is a clear signal that their words are not worthy of a response, that their opinions hold no weight in your world, and that you are simply unwilling to waste your time or energy on their negativity. It's also a quiet, subtle reminder that they are not entitled to your attention or your emotional labor, that you are not obligated to respond to their every provocation, and that you have the power to choose how you engage with them, or, in this case, choose not to. Imagine a situation where someone makes a snide or unnecessary comment about your work, a clear attempt to undermine your confidence or provoke a defensive reaction. Your initial instinct might be to explain yourself, to justify your actions, or to defend your work against their criticism, but instead, try responding with silence. Simply look at them, perhaps raise an eyebrow slightly, and say nothing. Let your silence hang in the air. Let them feel the weight of their own words, and you will likely find that they become increasingly uncomfortable, unsure of how to proceed in the absence of your expected reaction. They may try to fill the silence with more words, attempting to justify their initial comment or to provoke you into responding, but resist the urge to engage. Simply maintain your silence, and allow them to stew in their own discomfort. You'll also be doing yourself a favor, in that moment, for that situation. When people who disrespect others usually expect a reaction, they're looking for a fight, a justification, or just some key idea of validation for their own behavior. So silence basically means, I'm not giving you my energy, and by not engaging you're keeping control of the conversation and letting them know, I'm not here to entertain your disrespect, because sometimes the most powerful way to communicate is by not communicating. It's a quiet, subtle reminder that they're not worth your time or words. This silence, that deafening absence of a response, can be incredibly disarming, as it deprives the disrespectful individual of the attention and validation they crave. It forces them to confront the emptiness and futility of their own behavior, and it sends a clear message that you are not willing to play their game. For the beauty of silence is that it starves disrespect of the attention it craves, it cuts off the oxygen supply to their negativity, and it leaves them stranded in their own unpleasantness, because when you choose silence, you are choosing yourself, you are prioritizing your own peace of mind over the need to respond to every provocation. You are valuing your own energy over the fleeting satisfaction of a verbal retort, and that's not just empowering, it's revolutionary, for so often, we feel pressured to respond to every insult, to defend ourselves against every accusation, to justify our choices to those who are frankly not interested in respecting us. We are conditioned to believe that silence is a sign of weakness, that it implies defeat or acquiescence, but by embracing silence as a conscious choice, we defy this expectation, we reclaim our power, and we send a clear message that we are not willing to be drawn into their negativity, and it's not just about controlling the situation, it's about reclaiming your energy, as silence acts as a protective filter, shielding you from the negativity and toxicity that others attempt to project onto you. It allows you to conserve your mental and emotional resources, preventing them from being depleted by pointless arguments or defensive maneuvers, and the moment you cease to feel the need to respond to every rude comment, every passive-aggressive jab, you liberate yourself, you cease giving others access to your inner world, and you begin to live on your own terms, for learning to use silence effectively is a skill that requires practice and discipline. It can be challenging to resist the urge to defend yourself or to lash out in anger, but with time and effort, it becomes an increasingly natural and empowering response, as it empowers you to become a master of your own emotional landscape, choosing when and how to engage with the world around you, and knowing that your silence can be just as powerful, if not more so, than your words. In addition to this, it's incredibly important to stop explaining your choices. Seriously, how many times have you made a decision for yourself, only for someone to immediately start peppering you with questions? Why did you do that? Why didn't you go to that event? Why did you take that job? And people seem to think they're entitled to an explanation for everything we do, and here's the honest truth: they're not. Your choices are your own, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live your life. It might sound controversial, but let's face it, if someone's questioning your choices, they're often not looking to understand, they're looking to judge. They're looking to poke holes, to make you doubt yourself, or to feel better about their own decisions by making you second-guess yours. And you know what? You don't have to play along, for when you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your autonomy, and show them that your life isn't up for debate, a concept that challenges deeply ingrained social expectations, as we are often taught to justify our actions to others, to seek their approval and validation, and to conform to societal norms. But this need for external validation can be incredibly limiting, preventing us from making choices that are truly aligned with our own values and desires. By constantly explaining ourselves, we are implicitly seeking the permission of others to live our lives as we see fit. We are placing their opinions above our own, and we are undermining our own sense of self-worth. So it's in the act of questioning our choices, because it's often rooted in a desire to maintain the status quo, to reinforce existing power structures, and to discourage any deviation from the norm. Because when someone questions your choices, it's often because your decision challenges their view of the world. Maybe you're taking a risk they're too scared to take, or maybe you're stepping out of the norm they find so comforting. Your independence or willingness to do things differently can make them uncomfortable, and asking you to explain is their way of trying to fit you back into their comfort zone. But here's the kicker: just because they're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're responsible for reassuring them. Your life isn't a public service announcement. You don't have to justify your choices to anyone, for your life is not a performance to be critiqued by an audience. It is a personal journey to be navigated with authenticity and self-awareness, and just as an artist is not obligated to explain the meaning behind their work, so too are you not obligated to explain the reasoning behind your choices, for the true value of your choices lies not in their external validation, but in their internal resonance, in their alignment with your values, your desires, and your aspirations. So when I decided to switch careers, moving from a safe job to something I was actually passionate about, but that came with a lot more risk. The moment people found out, it was like I'd announced I was moving to Mars, for I kept getting asked, why would you leave a stable job, and how are you going to make it work? At first I'd try to explain, talk about how I wanted something more fulfilling, about how I had a plan, but I quickly realized that no matter what I said, it never felt like enough, as the more I explained, the more people questioned me, poking holes and making me feel like I needed to prove myself. Then one day I decided to try something new, for when someone asked, but why would you leave that job, I simply replied, because I wanted to. No extra details, no breakdown of my strategy, just a simple answer, and let me tell you, it felt amazing. The silence that followed was everything, as people didn't know how to respond, because I'd taken away their power to question my choices, and you know what? They eventually stopped asking, because the real beauty of not explaining yourself is, it's freeing, it's you standing in your own truth, knowing that your decisions are enough simply because you've made them, and when you stop justifying your actions, you give yourself permission to live authentically, without the weight of other people's expectations, for in that space, you free up the mental energy that was previously devoted to justifying your actions, and you can redirect that energy towards actually pursuing your goals and living your life to the fullest, for it frees you from the constant need for external validation, allowing you to make choices based on your own internal compass, rather than on the approval of others. It also allows you to cultivate a deeper sense of self-trust, for when you stop seeking the approval of others, you begin to trust your own judgment and intuition. You develop a greater confidence in your ability to make sound decisions, and you empower yourself to live a life that is truly aligned with your values, so you should embrace this freedom, allowing it to guide you towards a life that is authentic, fulfilling, and truly your own, because there's a powerful lesson here. Your life doesn't need an audience vote, not every decision has to be analyzed or approved by others, and when you stop explaining yourself, you're letting people know, I'm confident enough in my choices that I don't need your approval, for that's why. When was the last time you saw a truly confident person breaking down their decisions for others? Probably never, because people who own their lives don't need external validation. They know that the only approval that matters is their own, and they live their lives accordingly, making choices that are aligned with their values and desires, regardless of what others may think or say. So don't try to be that person to everyone you know. Look, I've been there. I used to be the person who'd give a full PowerPoint presentation on why I was doing something just to get people on board, but over time I realized that explaining myself to everyone was only making me second-guess my choices, so I made a pact with myself. If someone asks me about a decision, I'll answer briefly, maybe give a sentence or two. If they push for more, I smile and move on, and you know what? Life got a lot lighter, the more I stopped explaining, the more confident I became in my own decisions. A challenge to you, and a pact with myself: the next time someone questions your choices, resist the urge to explain, just say, because I wanted to, or, that's what felt right for me, then let the silence speak, and watch how powerful that simple statement is, for you'll feel stronger, more in control, and more at peace with yourself. And the best part, you'll realize that your choices don't need anyone else's stamp of approval. They're valid simply because you made them, and you have to be fine with that. And following on from that, sometimes, the most powerful act of self-respect is simply to keep your distance, as it might sound harsh, maybe even a little cold, but here's the hard truth. Not everyone deserves a front-row seat in your life. And if someone's consistently disrespecting you, one of the healthiest moves you can make is to give yourself some space from them, a concept that is often misunderstood as a sign of weakness or social ineptitude, but it is, in reality, an act of profound self-awareness and self-preservation, for it requires the ability to recognize toxic patterns in your relationships, to acknowledge that certain individuals are consistently draining your energy and undermining your well-being, and to have the courage to prioritize your own needs above the expectations of others. This doesn't mean you hate them, or that you're being dramatic. It means you respect yourself enough to protect your energy, because it is a valuable and finite resource, and it should be invested wisely, in relationships that are mutually supportive and uplifting, not squandered on those who consistently disrespect you. For keeping your distance isn't about being mean or ignoring people, it's about choosing where and how you spend your time and energy, and the conscious allocation of this limited resource. And by carefully curating the relationships in your life, you create an environment that is conducive to growth, happiness, and self-respect. So you should imagine your life as a limited access club. Not everyone gets a VIP pass, and if someone's constantly crossing your boundaries, making you feel small, or just radiating negativity, why on earth would you keep them close? For is it okay to step back? In fact, it's crucial. Distance can give you the clarity to see things as they really are, free from the fog of emotional manipulation or guilt, because when you keep people who disrespect you close, it's like inviting them to a mental and emotional buffet, where they take, criticize, and judge as much as they want, and then we wonder why we feel drained, anxious, or frustrated. Giving yourself space from these people is an act of self-preservation. It's about protecting your mental health, preserving your peace, And making room for people who actually respect and uplift you, letting go of the guilt around distancing yourself can be liberating. You're not obligated to keep disrespectful people in your orbit. It's also a profound act of self-compassion, as it acknowledges that you deserve to be surrounded by people who treat you with kindness, respect, and empathy, and it empowers you to create a life that is aligned with your values and aspirations, for that is why the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. I'll share a little story. I once had a friend who would always find a way to make snide comments about every choice I made, my career, my relationships, even my taste in music. At first I thought, well, that's just how they are, maybe I'm overreacting, so I kept them around, kept trying to brush it off, thinking it wasn't that big of a deal, but over time, those little jabs started getting under my skin. For that is when I realized I was walking on eggshells, always bracing myself for the next criticism, the next joke that felt more like a punch, and one day I decided to try a different approach. I didn't make a big announcement or call them out, I just started limiting my time with them. Instead of seeing them every week, I'd see them maybe once a month, and guess what? I felt lighter, I felt freer, and in that space, I realized just how toxic that friendship had become, because distancing myself gave me the mental clarity to see that I deserved better, friends who would build me up instead of tearing me down. There's a lot in store, for sometimes distance is the only way to truly see a relationship for what it is, a drain on your energy, a source of constant negativity, or a genuine source of support and connection, and once you have that clarity, you can make informed decisions about how to proceed. For some people are going to tell you that keeping your distance is selfish, they'll say, but they're family, or you've been friends for years. It can feel uncomfortable, maybe even a little taboo, to admit that someone you know well just isn't good for you, because society tells us to be loyal, forgiving, and nice, but at what cost? And it can require a deep level of self-awareness, for it is a powerful statement that you value your own well-being more than the expectations of others, so that by protecting your peace, it isn't selfish, it's necessary. You're not here to be anyone's emotional punching bag or their constant source of validation, and sometimes the best way to show someone you've had enough is by simply stepping back, because sometimes, your mere presence is a sign that you are willing to tolerate their behavior, but when you remove yourself from the equation, you send a clear message that you are no longer willing to accept their disrespect, for it gets deep, because keeping your distance is a powerful reminder that you are your own priority. You don't have to play the role someone else has assigned to you, you don't owe anyone access to your mind, your time, or your emotions, and that's when you put a little space between yourself and disrespectful people. You're making a statement that your well-being comes first, and that's not just self-care, it's self-respect. So distance also gives you the chance to re-center, to focus on the relationships that matter, the ones that genuinely uplift you. There's more to discover, because the more time you spend around people who respect you, the more confident and fulfilled you feel. The less time you spend around those who tear you down, the less room they have to impact your thoughts, your mood, and your life. And so remember that you deserve to be surrounded by people who treat you with kindness, respect, and empathy, and you have the power to create that environment by carefully curating the relationships in your life. But I used to feel so guilty about distancing myself from people, even if they weren't treating me well. I'd think, what if they think I don't care, or maybe I'm overreacting. But over time I learned that distancing myself wasn't just about removing negativity, it was about creating space for growth. And when I started giving myself permission to distance from disrespectful people, I felt a new kind of freedom. I had more energy, more peace, and a clearer vision of who I wanted in my life. So you have a challenge, a question, a thought. You have to think about the people in your life who constantly disrespect you, who make you feel small or drained. Then ask yourself, do they really deserve this much access to me? And finally, hold your head high, because it's an old school classic that never goes out of style, and this advice may sound generic, but this one is pure gold when dealing with people who don't respect you, for it is the ultimate act of defiance against those who seek to diminish you. For it is a declaration of your self-worth, your confidence, and your unwavering belief in your own inherent value, a statement that communicates far more effectively than any verbal response could. For when someone is disrespectful, they're banking on making you feel small. They want you to doubt yourself, to lower your eyes, to shrink into yourself, and that's when, by refusing to meet their gaze, by Slouching your shoulders, and by allowing their words to penetrate your armor, you are implicitly validating their disrespect, you are giving them the power to undermine your confidence and to diminish your sense of self-worth. But that's not what you have to do, for the converse can be said. When you stand tall and hold your head high, you're saying, without a word, I know exactly who I am, and nothing you say or do will make me feel less. And as you walk into a room with your head held high, you are projecting an aura of confidence, competence, and self-assurance, and you are signaling to others that you are not to be trifled with, that you are worthy of respect, and that you will not tolerate any attempts to diminish you, as confidence makes people uncomfortable, especially people who disrespect others. Why? Because they rely on the idea that their words or actions have the power to influence you, to control you in some way. So when you refuse to let their disrespect touch you, when you literally stand taller and hold your head up high, you're showing them that they don't have the power to bring you down, that you're unbreakable, and people who thrive on disrespect don't know what to do with that. It throws them off balance. It makes them question their power, not yours. And that's why you are you, and that is why they are them, because when someone sees you, they may not like you, but they do respect you. Because I remember being in a situation with someone who just couldn't resist throwing little insults my way every time we met. You know the type, always a smirk, always a joke that feels more like an attack. I used to try and brush it off, but honestly it got to me. I found myself starting to dread being around them, feeling like I had to defend myself every time. For then one day I decided I was done feeling small, and I showed up shoulders back, head high, and every time they made one of their little comments, I just looked them in the eye, smiled, and carried on like nothing had happened. And you know what happened? They actually started backing off. It's like they could sense that their comments weren't reaching me anymore, that I was too far above that nonsense, and suddenly their power faded. And that's when you are you, for there's something magnetic about holding your head high. It's like a silent force field that says, I'm untouchable. You show your true self, and it changes the dynamic in that moment, for then it gets a little spicy. People who don't respect you often hate seeing you confident. It messes with their worldview. They want to believe they're above you, that they've got something on you, and when you walk around confidently, it disrupts that narrative. To them, it's almost offensive. And society doesn't always know what to do with people who are unapologetically sure of themselves, especially when they refuse to let others' negativity define them. And let's be real, that can make you a bit of a target. So here's where you have to show yourself off, for holding your head high isn't about them, it's about you. It's about living as if you're fully aware of your worth, as if you've got nothing to prove, and that can feel like a radical act of self-respect, for that is where everything changes, because people who don't matter, won't matter. When you hold your head high, you're making a statement about your self-worth. You're declaring that, no matter what, you see yourself as valuable, as deserving of respect, as inherently enough, and you walk with that belief. And here's the deeper message: self-worth isn't something you earn from others, it's something you claim for yourself, for no matter what others think or say, you're walking through life as if you already have everything you need within you, because you do. And holding your head high is a constant reminder that you're the main character in your own story, that no one else's opinion has the right to make you feel less. And the beauty of it is, the more you practice this, the less the disrespect of others will even register. You'll be too busy living in your own lane, too secure in who you are, to be bothered by anyone else's attempts to knock you down. I used to be the person who'd slouch, avoid eye contact, and just kind of shrink myself when people were critical or dismissive. It felt safer to disappear in a way. But over time I started noticing that every time I held my head high, every time I refused to let someone's negativity seep into my spirit, I felt stronger. It was like I was reminding myself over and over that I didn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. That's when I knew, it was my calling to share what has worked for me, for there must be others like me, who felt like they needed the support. And so I continued. So as I end this, let's get you prepared, for holding your head high isn't just about physical posture. It's about mental posture, too. You need to walk into every room like you belong there. You can't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. So what, if someone makes a snarky comment, you have to let it roll off you. They're not seeing the real you, they're projecting their own insecurities, so why let it bother you? In the end, you're walking out of that room, while they are staying, and you have a choice: give the power to them, or save it for yourself. Then it's your challenge, what is it gonna be? For you need to, next time you feel disrespected, whether it's a subtle dig or a full-on insult, don't react, instead, take a deep breath, pull your shoulders back, and keep your head high, then look them straight in the eye, as if to say, I see you, but I'm above this. You'll feel a rush of confidence, a sense of peace that comes from knowing that their words hold no power over you, for that is why you should follow the advice. For holding your head high is more than just good posture, it's a powerful silent statement of your self-respect. It says, I know who I am, I value who I am, and nothing you say can change that, because at the end of the day, respect starts with you. The more you respect yourself, the less room there is for anyone else's disrespect to stick. So stand tall, own your worth, and remember, you're worth every bit of that confidence, and there you have it. Ways to handle people who just don't get it and maybe never will. Life's too short to spend it bending over backwards for people who can't see your value, so if they can't see your value, it is time to make a turn, and to move forward, but with your head high, remembering the past but not stopping, because in the end, it is your journey that matters, because you don't need anyone's permission to stand tall. Protect your peace, and live life on your terms, because people will try to bring you down, test your boundaries, and question your choices. That's just the world we live in, but you are not alone. I too, have felt that, and now here I am, teaching and sharing it with you, but here's the thing, you get to decide what energy you let in, and you get to set the standard for how you're treated, and the best part is, the more you focus on your self-respect, the more you'll attract people who see your worth, who uplift you instead of dragging you down. It all starts with you owning your power and letting the rest fall into place. So hold your head high, embrace the silence when it serves you. And never apologize for walking away from what doesn't serve you, for you are the main character in your own story. So let's get you your happy ever after, and what better way to prepare that, than to love yourself. Now I want to leave you with this, take care, stay strong, and remember, respect starts with you.